back about Grandma and Grandpa, I think first thought that pops into my head with Grandpa is him sitting on his patio with his little cup of wine and just walking over to his garden, reading a few things, going and sitting back down again. And many times I would go over there and sit, and he would tell me different stories, half in English, half in Italian, and you know, I could follow it to some degree, and then I just nodded when I couldn't. But it just was a very warm feeling being around him and Grandma.
I remember Grandpa Gurto he always wears work clothes, and his hat, I feel like hat from the railroad, and his little sparkly yellow cup with his wine in it. That's it.
Okay, here's a memory of Grandpa Gurto. He always had his little yellow cup with an elephant on it, and it was always filled with wine. Because he said he couldn't drink water because his pipes would rust out. Now another one, don't ever show this to Uncle Pat. When Pat came in the house one time, he said something to Grandpa about money, because your Grandpa always had money in his pocket. And he reached in to get it, and I thought Grandpa was going to body slam him on the ground. He just grabbed him. For his age, he was tough.
Well, I always remember him sitting on that wooden bench that he had, and he was always dressed in his work clothes, like he was going to be called to work, but I don't think he was ever called to work. I think that's all the clothes he ever wore. And he had a little railroad hat cap on, and he always just looked so content sitting on that little bench and drinking his little bit of wine. And you know, whenever we go over there, it just, you know, that's kind of how I remember him. And of course, I always remember his garden. His garden was just beautiful. The property he had and how he maintained it, and the little rows were all just so perfect. But he was quite a guy, very smart man.
Grandpa Gurto, one of my favorite memories is, I have a lot of them, but one that sticks out in my mind all the time to this day is one time I had to go over there for lunch when I was little from school, and Grandpa made me lunch, and there was a bologna and grape jelly sandwich. It wasn't my favorite, because I never had anything like that before, but I ate it. But that's one of my memories of Grandpa, is that bologna and jelly sandwich.
My memory of Grandpa Gurto is him sitting on the back patio on his bench, holding his little yellow cup that we just never really knew it was wine. And it was wine pretty much from noon until when he went to bed at 6 o'clock. And then the other memory was how much he loved his garden. And when he'd go to bed, we'd kind of sneak in and steal a tomato.
Grandpa Gurto. I think of Grandpa Gurto walking around the back of the house, the Philadelphia in their house, and he would always be sitting there with his little jelly jar of wine, and he would always ask us to come sit on his knee, and he would always give us a quarter.
Yeah. I don't know, he wasn't one of them granddads that like put you on his knee or any of that kind of stuff, you know what I mean? He was like, I don't know, like when I was 14 or 15, he'd give me a beer. It made you feel like you were an adult, kind of, you know what I mean? Yeah. Something on that order, I would say.
When the Eggman came with chicken, live chicken, and Grandpa had a stump set up out behind there, and he was, me and you were kind of like looking out from behind the tree, and he's pulling them out of the cage and whacking their heads off and throwing them over his shoulder. And they were running around with no heads on. Remember? It freaked us out.
I remember that. I do.
I remember grabbing one, trying to grab one after I got used to it, and it squirted blood all over me. And when I went home, my mother freaked out. She thought I got hit with him, you know, chopped up somewhere or something.
My memory of Grandpa Gurto is telling us to stay out of his grapes when we would put a tent in our backyard and we'd want to run over to the garden. We'd pick his grapes and eat his sweet peas because he said we could not take the grapes. He needed those for his wine.
I think the thing I remember most about Grandpa Gurto, and there's so many things that stand out in people's minds, but mine is him working in his garden every morning, early in the morning.
I could look out our back window and see him out in the garden, and he was either hoeing or pulling weeds or getting ready to water the plants. So to me, that was a very special memory, because as an early riser, many mornings I would go out and stand by the garden and talk to him and watch him work in the garden.
I remember Grandpa sitting on his bench, having his little cup of wine. I remember Grandpa always had time for us kids. I also remember a time when Stevie Moneypenny and I went into Grandpa's garden and we took something, and Grandpa started chasing us. And Uncle Pat's house was just being built at the time, so we ran over to the side of the house next to Rosie's, climbed up one of the cherry trees, and went on top of the roof of Pat's house. And Grandpa was chasing us and yelling at us and telling us to get down, and we just ran right across the roof and jumped right off the back of the roof into a big pile of dirt that was in the back of Pat's house, and just ran away into the fish field.
So I was pretty young when we moved to Florida, and so my memories of Grandpa Gurto are fairly limited. But what I do remember is going to the house on Wrights Avenue and him sitting in his overalls from the railroad and sitting there drinking out of a yellow Donald glass plastic cup and telling the grandkids that it was grape juice when it was really homemade wine. And I remember the parents getting all upset with him when he would let us drink out of the Donald Duck glass, and he would just laugh and think that was so funny that his kids were getting mad because the grandkids were drinking his grape juice. And I can remember that laughter, and it brings a smile to my face.
Gurto.
I remember Grandpa Gurto making wine down in the basement and being out in the garden, and always playing ball with my dog Tiny.
And he told me I could have a 5-speed motor or pedal bike, Schwinn, cool one, or a motorbike, mini bike. And I took the mini bike. And Uncle Bill and Dad and Grandpa was sitting there in the back of the patio, waiting for him. It was a little glass of yellow wine, or a little yellow glass of wine. And when we pulled back up, put the mini bike out back, and Grandpa Gurto says, "I won't be here for your graduation, so."
My memory of Grandpa Gurto is sitting in his chair with a little cup of wine in the living room. That's how I remember.
I did something at Grandpa's funeral, because you all spoke of his pocket, and he was always had money, and everybody knew. I mean, all the kids knew that Grandpa had that money in his pocket, right? And so, at the funeral, I made sure I went up to Joe's dad, and I told him, I says, give him $5. I says, you make sure that goes in my Grandpa's pocket. I hope he used it for his wine up there.
I remember Grandma Gurto always making dough, and there was mounds and mounds of dough all over the kitchen.
Grandma Gurto, I have a lot of memories of her as well. I used to love going into her kitchen and just waiting, just all nervously, waiting and hoping that she was going to open that curtain behind her fresh baked snacks, like her pizzelles, her wedding cookies, or her Easter bread, or her peppered biscottis. But she always had something good back behind that curtain. And I was always just hope, Grandma, please give me something. I remember that. And I remember she would always like wrap some quarters in a napkin, shove them in your hand, and say, hurry, hurry, go before Grandpa sees. Go.
Grandma is being in Effie's house with a piece of fabric as that cupboard door, the pantry door, and Grandma carrying out that big Bertolli olive oil, and always just holding that big can of olive oil when she was cooking.
Grandma Gurto is always cooking and offering us food. I remember her canning tomatoes, the mountains of cheese and pepperoni that would be grated when she was making dozens of pizzas for a family get-together. I remember Christmas time and all the different kinds of cookies that would be available, and the kids would always be going over to the table, sneaking the Hershey's Kisses off of the top of those ones.
Going to Grandma Gurto's, she always told me come in and manja. Manja, she said. She always was cooking. Refrigerator always welcome. Cook, always had her apron on. Taking care of Grandpa. That's my little memory of Grandma. And I mean, just being the most sweetest Italian lady there is.
I think a very fond memory I have of Grandma Gurto is the aprons she always wore. To this day, when I cook, I wear an apron, and when I put one on, I think of her just because, you know, she always had an apron on. She was always working in the kitchen, always trying to make good food for all of her good family. So to me, it was more about her being in the kitchen and creating food, and who could forget her cookies?
Memory of Grandma Gurto was her always coming over at our house and helping Mom with the laundry, hang the clothes out on that clothesline out there, take them off. And then I remember her yelling at Grandpa because I was 5 years old and I came back into their house and he had just cut some heads off of some chickens. And she was yelling at him in Italian and she grabbed me and picked me up and took me in the house so I didn't see the headless chickens.
And with Grandma, I remember her always in the kitchen cooking, especially when she was baking. And I remember one time asking her for recipes, and there were no recipes. She dumped a bag of flour on the counter. She used her fist and made a well in the center of it, threw all the ingredients into the center of it, and was telling me, this is how you do it, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and I'm trying to figure out the measurements so that I could make these cookies. So I don't think I ever got it right, but it always intrigued me the way that she could just do this, and they tasted delicious every time she made them.
West Palm Beach, Florida. She and Aunt Rosie flew down, and I'm sure it was the first time she'd ever been on an airplane. And for me, that was really special. And part of the problem was my parents were in Florida, so I got married in Florida, and Barry was in the service, so, we didn't have a super big wedding. But a lot of the aunts and uncles that were in Conneaut wanted us to get married in Conneaut. And I remember her telling me, she's saying, don't listen to my children. She says, you do what's best for you. She says, but I really got a lot of grief. My dad got a lot of grief about, why aren't you guys getting, why aren't they getting married since I was the first grandchild to get married? Why aren't you getting married in Conneaut? But she stood up for me, and I thought that, she was a strong woman, more than people realize. But that was very special that she was at my wedding.
Grandma Gurto, I remember Grandma covered in flour in her kitchen, yelling at all of us because we were playing in the dough and the flour, and we were making ravioli, and we weren't doing anything right. We were trying really hard, but she was yelling at all of us, and we were making the raviolis.
When I remember Grandma Gurto, I don't ever remember seeing her sit down. It seemed to me she was always standing in the kitchen over the oven, cooking, baking. And I really never remember seeing her sit down and relaxing because she enjoyed having people in the house and enjoyed entertaining them and feeding them and always making us eat whether we were hungry or not. That's my favorite memory of her, is her enjoying her family being around her and providing food, the best food ever for them. And though they had limited resources, they always had an abundance of food and love in that house.
As soon as you walk in the house, hungry, thirsty, want something to eat? I don't have any. I'll make it for you. Are you hungry? You want something to eat? Are you sure? Yes, Grandma. I'll take something.
I don't know, it seemed like always cooking food, like spaghetti and pork chops or chicken or whatever she put in it. It was always good. Like my dad, my mom said when they got married, my dad wouldn't even eat spaghetti. They ate so much of it, I loved it.
I would say my memory of Grandma Gurto is going to their house and always the cookies and things, and then sitting on her lap, but wasn't very big because she had big boobs. But I remember that, and I loved her squishiness.
My memory of Grandma Gurto is And since we lived in Virginia, we didn't see her very often. We would come once a summer to visit, and I just always remember when we would leave, she would always give us a dog. And she would always grab us and smother us in particular beauties and just hug us and kiss us and start to cry. And that's what I remember the most about her, that love she felt for us and how sad she was that we were going to die.
My favorite family foods have to be Aunt Mary and Aunt Sue's spaghetti sauce, Effie's pizzelles, Grandma's biscotti, and Sherry's pizzas.
Okay, well, there's some really good cooks in the Gurto family, and obviously Grandma's raviolis were, probably everybody said that. She'd make 3 big ones and they'd fill a plate, and Aunt Susie made the best desserts. But I think overall everybody learned to cook good Italian, but it had to be Grandma's ravioli. There was something about them. The dough was almost like it was real thin. It was almost like that Chinese what do they call them? Dumplings dough. It was real thin. It wasn't that heavy dough, and I don't think I've ever been able to make them that way. I know when Barry was in the service one time, I decided to make homemade raviolis for him. He came home from the base, and I, worked all day making homemade raviolis and sauce and all that. And after we had dinner, he said, I really don't like raviolis that much. Pounding them over the head with something. But nobody could make them like Grandma. Although Brenda makes a good ravioli, and I think you probably do too. You're a good cook. So those are some of my good memories about my grandparents.
My favorite family food has to be those biscuits that Effie made. And I also loved the ravioli that my mom made.
My favorite family food. I think that would have to be my mom's raviolis. I used to really enjoy watching her make them, watching her roll the dough out, stuff them, fork them closed, and then they were just wonderful. To this day, I think of them. I do make raviolis, and every time I'm rolling the dough or pinching them closed, I just go back a few decades, 4 or 5, and I think of my mom, and I miss her a lot. So, and I love all of you.
I would have to say my mother's raviolis. They were very good, very big, and delicious. But I think everybody had their own specialties that they made in each household. But, I did truly enjoy my mom's homemade raviolis. I've made them a few times, but Brenda's going to claim that she makes them just as good as my mom did. And to tell you the truth, I don't think I've ever had any of Brenda's because she hasn't invited me over for raviolis. But maybe this will prompt her to.
Well, I don't remember Grandma Gurto, but I remember making Christmas cookies with Aunt Sue and Effie. I remember the Buckeyes and the biscuits. I like making those with them.
Well, it was the Italian biscuit with the little fennel seeds. Effie made them, loved them. And then recently I made them, and I was very impressed, and they came out really, really good. So I love those.
Family food was always biscuits, and Grandma, and she made them. I just loved them. David Gurto makes them excellent, and Dana made them last year, and they were phenomenal.
My favorite family food. There's so many. I was always a sweet person, so I loved, on the top of my list was Grandma's dry Easter bread. But I loved it. And I loved her raviolis and her meatballs.
I don't know. Ellen Gurto's meatballs. That's my mother. Susie used to make meatloaf. It was like a football. That was always good. The best one about Susie was I went downstairs one time when I was staying with her. I said, "What have you been doing?" I've been making cookies. They said, you were? I said, what kind? Ginger. Oh my God, Susie, that's my favorite. Well, here, have a couple. So she gives me one, and I take it. I say, these are really good. They're all the same color. They're all the same size. And I said, I'll take the garbage out for you. There was the empty cookie boxes. Credit card,
I don't know. Sausage, meatballs. Anybody can make it, I guess.
My favorite family food, I have to give a shout out to Brenda, is her homemade raviolis. She made them for us when she was down in Jacksonville visiting, and I was just blown away. That woman can cook, and they were delicious, and I think they were like the best thing I have ever had. So my shout out goes to Brenda and her amazing ravioli.
My favorite food, probably, when I think back of the past, I always think about Rosie making spaghetti sauce and putting pork chops in it. I think about that as far as a family food for myself. I think my family loves lasagna, and so we try to recreate a lasagna dish in the Italian style.
My favorite food of the family was lasagna, pizzelles, and Aunt Sue's Buckeyes for Christmas.
Family food.
Family food, oh my God, Rosie's meatballs. The secret recipe of Rosie's meatballs, the big meatballs. You had to put Parmesan cheese in there, Romano cheese in there, all the good ingredients. Rosie's meatballs were the best meatballs.
Food and who makes it?
My favorite family food is pizza, and my mom taught me how to make homemade pizza, and Grandma Gurto taught my mom how to make the pizza.
Rigatoni, meatballs and sausage, garlic bread and salad, and a little glass of wine.
Hello, this is Mark. My fondest memory growing up was going to Aunt Sue's house on Christmas Eve for her annual Christmas party.
I remember when Aunt Susie lived in Kingsville, it was a big deal to go stay at her house. And, you know, she had the blue room, the green room, yeah, whatever, pink room, and it was, she always treated us like we were in a hotel when we stayed there. And Aunt Mary loved it, and I loved staying there. And me and Faye would, you know, just do silly things. And you girls, oh really? You know. Going to Rosie's, I loved going there when I was working after high school, and she would invite me over for lunch. And I just loved going and just get lunch with her.
Probably the seniors that I remember best. Obviously, I remember all of them fondly, but probably the ones that lived on Wrights Avenue and Residence Street are the ones that I was the closest to. I grew up with them, and I saw them pretty much most every day of my life in the summer, and usually throughout the year, the rest of the year. You know, whether it was Gail's laugh, or Rosie getting her half a cup of coffee, or Effie laughing in the back patio, or Lorraine laughing. I will never forget her laugh. It's just such a wonderful thing. And all the other ones. I love them all.
Okay, first I'll start with my dad. I remember him cutting my hair and always having the race car in the garage and working on that, and everybody coming over, and my mom would unload the car after he would come home and drive it down Wrights Avenue, and Lena Rich would call the cops on my mother. And my dad always put all these beautiful Christmas lights out, and he always kept the flowers and the grass cut so everything was perfect. And then Uncle Frank, him and Dad were always going all around looking for flowers. And Uncle Joe, every time we would go over there for a little cookout, he was always making cross-patch potatoes on the grill. Aunt Mary, she would, when I would spend the night with Brenda, Faye, and Pam, we could only take a bath in an inch of water. And Aunt Rosie, she was always cutting everybody's hair. And she would come over to our house every morning for coffee and smoking cigarettes. Susie, I went on the boat, the Roger Blau, with her and Uncle Bob. And Aunt Effie and Uncle Bill, they took me for a ride in a semi-truck when he was driving truck. So I thought that was all that.
It just happens to concern one Lorraine Gurto. It was at Jimmy Gurto's first reunion down in Wexford, Pennsylvania.
Yep.
And Jimmy was making drinks. And I distinctly remember Joseph Gurto Sr. telling Lorraine, you better slow down on those, because she was drinking Jim's yummy drinks so fast. And it wasn't 5 minutes later that Lorraine Gurto forgot to open the screen door on the sliding bottom doors and walked right through it.
There you go.
Well, I made all the reunions except one. And I think the one that I remember the most is the first one. It was Jimmy and Deanne. Everybody was there on the side of the hill. And I shouldn't say this about your mother, but I'm going to. Remember she went through the sliding screen door? Were you? Okay, you remember that. So you know I'm not making this stuff up.
Got me.
And she went through that door and I was like,
We got our first reunion. I never...
I remember going to Florida to see my Uncle Christy, and I always wanted to be just like him, because he had his own business, and I always said, boy, that Uncle Christy must be rich. And but all my uncles, they had a talent in every trade there is. Every one of my uncles could do something. From fixing a lawnmower to building a house.
I'd have to say going over to Rosie's and her cookie, Lazy Susan candy dish that was on her table, and her always having Pepsi, Wonder Bread, and soft butter.
I didn't know Grandpa Gurto, but I have a memory of Uncle Tony coming and building my cupboards for me at my trailer, one-of-a-kind Uncle Tony cupboards. And I remember seeing Dad and Uncle Christy sitting next to each other, looking just like twins, loving it. Oh, I loved it. They acted just the same. It was great. And one of my childhood memories was Bill Lewis and Bob Spears sitting on the porch over there. And every time they'd see me, they'd call me Pork Chop.
Well, it's gotta be your dad, Joe, and my dad sitting there, and your dad told the same jokes every year that we came up for the reunion. And my dad would sit there, and he'd be like a little boy, just laughing at the same jokes that he'd heard probably 10 years ago. And your dad just could tell a story so well, and that was just I just remember that about him. And I mean, it just all the aunts and uncles were just, you know, each one we have a memory about each one of them. But I just think your dad was special.
Some of my favorite memories of the seniors are at the family reunion when the boys used to get together and tell stories. And oh my God, they embellished those stories year after year. They got funnier and funnier because they made up more stuff that wasn't true, but it made them laugh so hard. And I remember seeing Pat and Frank and my dad and Tony just crying when Uncle Joe used to tell stories because he was the best storyteller. And those boys would just laugh for hours sitting under the shade trees, listening about the family stories. And I just remember that so much. It was such a vivid time and memory. I also remember going to the family reunions and just having so much food. And it was so much love put into that food that we would all enjoy. But I think the best is just hearing everybody laugh and enjoy each other. And those were some of my best memories of the family reunions.
Aunt Sue and Uncle Bob in their fancy cars. My dad and mom in their hot rod cars. Uncle Pat and Aunt Gail in their big hot rod cars. Classy. Bob Spear over there with a big old Jeep. This is what I remember in his neighborhood. A lot of woods run around. You can go outside until it got dark. They said, come home when it's time to eat. The neighbor over there had a big bell for dinner time. Girardi's, I believe it was. Ding, ding. All the kids went home.
Uncle Christy was a wonderful role model and mentor for me. Uncle Tony, I remember him always calling everybody Waldo. I remember working at Rosie and Effie's pizza shop and helping out at Gail's and Ellen's pizza shop. I remember Uncle Pat working on his race car in his fabulous garage that was full of tools and all kinds of things. I remember John Moneypenny's summertime barbecues every Sunday.
Oh my gosh, there's probably a lot of memories. I think of Rosie always being at her house and always welcoming all of us in there. And Effie, of course, she was, you know, was living there with Grandma and Grandpa, and Gail and Pat, you know, which, you know, I hung out a lot at Gail and Pat's house. And they probably, as I got older, I migrated to them more, I think just because I was fascinated with the fact that they had this lifestyle with the races and the pizza shop and all of this, because they truly were not that much older than me. So I enjoyed the canasta games we played late at night. And then, you know, we had Lorraine next door. I would babysit for her. And Joey, I have to laugh because Joey knows how I babysat. So Joey, that's between us. So anyhow, next question.
Memory going on the boat for the summer with Aunt Sue, spending all summer long on the boat, hitting all the Great Lakes. I was treated like a little princess. I loved it. And I remember Uncle Christy and Aunt Peggy always looking, always matching. Always, never fails. Always matching their clothes. I thought it was cool.
Okay, one of my childhood memories would be with my cousin Vinny, because he lived next door and he was my best friend. And we would always play together, and we were over at his house climbing the plum tree in the back behind the garage. We'd climb up to the top, get on the garage roof, and jump off the garage roof. And then another memory I have would be at our house. It was me and Brenda, and I think Faye and Pam were there, and we played a pool game that Brenda came up with the idea. And we all had to run, jump in the pool, run to the other side, jump, run back, jump in the pool, run back, and tag your spot where you started from. And I happened to stop at the door, and when I stopped at the door, my arm went through the glass, and I was stuck in the door. My mother had to take me to the hospital, and I had 1,000,000 stitches in my arm.
Ago, and it was like yesterday to me. Yeah, you start going back to those places. They're good memories. You know, my kids kind of got gypped out of that stuff. Yeah. I feel bad for them, my mom and dad. You know, I had my kids late. And, you know, we used to have reunions like my mom's mother, my grandmother Epperson, my grandfather Epperson, and those Gurto reunions. I mean, these people were, they all had big families, 9, 10 people, and we had all them people in our lives for whole years, you know. Now, my kids, they sort of got keep running so they have good memories, you know. I got boxes of pictures at home. They don't even know who half these guys are. Yeah. It's sad. It makes me sad for them.
Yeah, I think for some reason they seemed to congregate at Grandma's house, where she had that big dining room table or kitchen table, and they were always playing cards there. And I was kind of small then, but they weren't playing for much money. But I remember just standing there. My dad had his salad room. So that was one of them. And then, teary-eyed here. Cousins were always playing together. I mean, the cousins were our friends. And we always were going to each other's house, eating meals. It's like, come on over, we're having this tonight. So we'd jump in the car and walk around the block. And it was so interesting because back then, we didn't really lock our houses when we left. You know, in summertime, we'd leave the screen door open like that, walk down to Grandma's, go to Mary's or Rosie's, and never worried about all the theft and stuff that's going on now. But good place to grow up.
A childhood memory.
What's your favorite?
Living in the neighborhood with all the relatives and being able to just run in the backyards. Walking to Rosie and Effie's pizza shop. Tony and I would be walking down the street with Effie because she didn't have a car, so we would walk uptown and help her like make the shells and slice the pepperoni and the cheese, and so that was always fun.
I think one of the things I remember most about growing up with our family was the holidays at Grandma and Grandpa's house, because it would just almost be a magnetic draw throughout that 2 weeks or that week prior to the holidays. People would just start showing up, and they mostly carried in a bottle of Paisano Red for Grandpa. But everybody would come to the house, and even relatives that lived in Conneaut, Ellen and Tony, that we didn't see too often, we got a chance to see them. So it just really was a special time, the holidays, when everybody would come to Grandma and Grandpa's to wish them happy holidays.
There are a few childhood memories I'd like to share. I remember when Stevie Moneypenny and me were 7 years old. We went into Grandpa's garden to get some food. Grandpa caught us and we ran away. We went to Uncle Pat's house, which was just being built, climbed the cherry tree next to the garage, and got on the roof. Grandpa was chasing us and yelling at us in Italian and shaking a hoe or a rake or something. And Stevie and I ran across the roof, jumped off into the backyard, and we ran away. Another time, Jackie Moneypenny and I thought it would be good fun to put gasoline in a dishwashing detergent bottle, and write our names on the wall of the old red garage and light it on fire. That was fun. I remember climbing trees and picking fruit all summer, and the summer nights when the families would get together and all the kids would be in Moneypenny's backyard playing kick the can. I also remember playing penny blackjack in the Moneypenny's basement with the cousins on the night of the moon landing. We all stopped playing when they landed. We went outside, we looked at the moon, then we went back in and finished our game.
Everybody was excited when family from out of town came. When Susie would come, or Jimmy and Beanne would come. You know, when Ellen was over visiting Grandma and Grandpa. You know, and you know, when Peggy and Christy were still in town, and when they came back to visit. I mean, it was just the fact that we were all so close, you know. And you know, Mom would say, well, I'm going to go over to see Grandma and Grandpa because, you know, so-and-so's in town and I'm going to go visit with them now. So it was always something going on. It was always exciting. It was an exciting time. And it was truly a family that stuck together.
Childhood memories I remember. When all the Moneypennies and us, we'd always play. You know, depending on what the season was, we had our tetherball season, we had our badminton season, our jump rope season, our football season. Every season we had a favorite games that we played.
So I remember going to Ohio for the summers, and then we would literally bounce from house to house. That was like the most fun, being able, with everybody living on Wrights Avenue and Residence and Chestnut Street. And we would literally bounce from house to house for food or to play or to swim and just spend time together. And it was such a freeing experience to just be able to go for just literally hours and just take off and go to each other's homes and play and eat. and enjoy each other, and our parents didn't really worry about us. It was a totally different time than it is now. So we were able to just go from house to play. We go to Pat's, we go to Rosie's, we go to Mary Lou's, we go to Uncle Joe's house, and just hang out and have the freedom in the summer to be outside and enjoy each other's company. And all that I could make my own pizza and put as much stuff on it as I wanted and bring it home and eat it and enjoy it sitting around Rosie's table. After a long day, they were working so hard, and then we'd come home and have to eat more pizza and tell more stories and just enjoy each other. And those were some of my favorite times with them.
My childhood memory is sort of selfish because I would often be here over the 4th of July, which led into my birthday. And I remember just having huge birthday parties. They were in the backyard of Rosie's house typically, or Pat and Gail's house. And to me now, I always felt like I was really lucky because my birthday was celebrated on the anniversary of Grandma and the anniversary of Gail. So I always felt really special being able to do that.
Uncle Pat and Gail lived next door, and Uncle Pat had the hot rods like Dad did, and that's what got me interested in. This is a good child going next door over there into the garage. Welders going, cutting torches going, motors, bom bom. And Uncle Pat let me use his cars all the time.
Kent State's phone number, but call Brenda. Her friend answered. Is Brenda there? Yeah, I got it. Brenda goes back. Hi. Hi. Sorry I missed you. That's my ex.
Oh my gosh, running back and forth between Effie's, Rosie's, and Pat and Gail's, having it in Effie's house, but we were back and forth between all the yards. We had the games in all the yards. We had all the food in Effie and Biz screened in the garage porches, but we were like just back and forth between everybody, having all the water balloon fights, volleyball games in between their houses. It was just fantastic memories, wonderful times together.
A childhood memory of playing with all the cousins in the neighborhood. Like from the time we woke up until the time we went to bed, climbing trees, eating fruit. And now they tell you should only have 2 pieces of fruit a day.
Well, I remember going to Grandma and Grandpa's at Christmas time, and they always had that tree. I believe it was silver, sparkly, and then it had the little wheel that changed color, it went around. And always just the Italian cookies and walking in, and like now I wish I had that smell, but the wine, now I know that's what it was, and I hated that smell, and now I would give anything for that smell.
So in honor of him, I would like to do the goal. I would like to start, and anybody else that would like to go, get up and do one. To start out with, there are, I think, over 100 people here today, and I think that in itself is amazing. And what also is amazing, that we are all related.
That is amazing. That is amazing.
And in honor of the birthday, I'm going to start the toasting with one of Grandpa's favorite flowers, the roses. The first rose is for Grandma. And this rose is because Grandma had the courage to marry Grandpa. And for that, they started all of this. And that's amazing too. The second rose is for the seniors. The ones here and the ones there. This is for you. And the third one is for the juniors and the future juniors. And all the future juniors. And the last rose, but not the least, is for Grandpa, in honor of the year of his birth. And Grandpa, this bud's for you.
I think that we are very lucky to have so many cousins. I don't know anybody that has such a huge family as we have. When I tell them how many cousins I have, nobody can believe that. And that, I think, is a real gift.
Gurto family, oh my gosh, all of us, 34 cousins, love, family, traditions, food, good selves, being together, cooking, oh my God, the Italian cookies for weeks. We used to start the second week of June, we made cookies for the entire month of June for this reunion. This was the height of the year, the Gurto reunion.
Gurto family.
Well, definitely loving and caring, and they're always there for us, even though we've kind of scattered, especially the cousins. We're all so far away, but whenever there's a crisis, we're all there.
Hi, this is Michelle. Happy 100th anniversary to Grandma and Grandpa. I'm so happy that we're all together on this really special reunion, and I know we're all thinking about the people who can't be with us today, but also enjoying the time that we're all together to celebrate. And thanks, Joe, for putting this together. So when I think of the Gurto family, I think of three things: love, laughter, and loud. It doesn't really matter when the last time we saw each other was, but when we're together, you can always feel the love between the family members. And we're usually laughing and telling great stories and reminiscing. And it's usually pretty loud because we all have so much to say. We talk over each other, but it's all in good fun, and it's so enjoyable when we're always together. So that's what I think of when I think of the Gurto family.
About the whole family, the whole Gurto family would just be that everybody was excited when family from out of town came. When Susie would come, or Jimmy and Beanne would come. You know, when Ellen was over visiting Grandma and Grandpa, you know, and, you know, when Peggy and Christy were still in town and when they came back to visit. I mean, it was just the fact that we were all so close, you know, and, you know, Mom would say, well, I'm going to go over to see Grandma and Grandpa because, you know, so-and-so's in town and I'm going to go visit with them now. So it was always something going on. It was always exciting. It was an exciting time. And it was truly a family that stuck together.
Hi, I'm Jack Moneypenny. I'm one of Peter and Mary's grandsons. Their daughter, Mary, was my mother. The first thing that comes to my mind when I hear the Gurto family is home, since so many of them lived right near us, and a big loving family.
A lot of eating, a lot of laughing, a lot of talking, just a lot of love.
A close family that, although our size was there, I'm very proud that I grew up with a family that I went to woke up in the morning playing with my cousins all day long until we went to bed, and then we woke up and we did it all day long. We didn't have friends when we grew up. Our cousins were our friends, and that's just something you don't see in today's society.
Italian food, love, just a lot of uncles and aunts and cousins.
Well, Aunt Lorraine is my connection to the Gurto family, Joe. If it wasn't for your mama, I wouldn't have a connection to the Gurtos. She's the one that reached out to me when I was young, and she's always been kind to me and loved me, and I'm going to miss her dearly. And I feel sorry for you, Joe.
When I hear the words Gurto family, I think about closeness, cousins, family reunions, food, and loud laughter.
The Gurto family, what comes to mind is the closeness that we all have, our heritage that we all came from, and what we've become.
Family is family. That's all we got. There's people and there's family. And family is like family. Family's family. It's no arguing, peace, love, eat, drink, be merry, be happy. Hugs. I believe in hugs. And that's what family is. Family is blood.
So what do you think of when you hear the words Gurto family?
I think of love, togetherness, and lots of food.
Gurto family.
What comes to my mind when I hear Gurto family is family and all the good food.
Grandpap Gurto. Well, Grandpap Gurto, every time you came, he was sitting outside, greeting everybody, and he always had his glass. And that's what I remember of Grandpap.
Another time I remember Pop was when he would go to work, and he'd come home, and at 3:30, I'd always walk up to the corner to meet him, because I knew, and I carried his lunchbox home, because in his lunchbox, he'd always save a piece of fruit. And I'd always have that piece of fruit. And he'd tell me on that two little short blocks going home, he'd say, eat it before the other kids get it. So I always had a piece of fruit. I was no dummy. I got there sometimes 5 minutes before I'd see him coming around the corner.
He never drank water, and he told us that many, many times. And the thing being, he said, the water will rust your pipes. So he never drank water. He didn't believe in drinking water, only as a matter of absolute necessity. Wine was his favorite drink, and he made his own wine. And he would have to make 100 gallons of wine. That's 2 50-gallon barrels full of wine to do him through the winter months and into the next grape season. And he had it all well calculated. But he could only drink so much at a time for it to last that long. But he did, he rationed it out, and he did make it last that long. And we were all involved, us boys, in helping Tom make his wine, such as running the press, and we didn't stomp in the grapes with our bare feet as most people would think. We come awful close to it. But in any event, he would treasure his wine, and he measured it, and he monitored it, and he couldn't get a glass of wine out of that basement without him knowing that a glass of wine had come out of there.
So you should feel honored to get a glass.
I remember that very distinctly, and it's a good wine story to remember. Thank you.
Did you ever help him with the wine?
He didn't suit his taste.
No?
We went too fast to crank. Gotta get done. Motherfucking house yelling like a son. What are you doing? Well done. We got this thing squished all the way down. Yeah, crank it back up. Crank it back up, take the blocks out. You got a goddamn bar in there. You break all that stuff up. Put the top back on, put the screw down in there, start playing. Stop. Every couple minutes away you make a half turn. And that's it. That's all you do.
Right.
We'll get every drop out of it. Let it drain. We just went. He got mad as son. Fucking straight.
One was our Christmases. Our Christmases, we never got presents because we couldn't afford them. But we all had our Christmas socks. We all hung our Christmas socks, and I always made sure that I got one of Mom's cotton socks because they were nice and warm. And in that sock, we'd have an orange, an apple, banana, nuts. But the best part was in the toe of the sock, we always got a 50-cent piece. And with that 50 cents, all of us kids were allowed to go to the old theater downtown Conneaut, the Ohio Theater. And we go there at 11 o'clock when the doors open, and we stay there till 7:30 at night when they wouldn't let anybody else in. And we got our money's worth. With that 50 cents, we were able to go to the movie, get popcorn and a drink. And we used to see like old movies like Roy Rogers and Gene Autry and all those kind of Western movies that were popular at that time.
From the time. And it was dangerous. And during the baptismals and first communions and confirmations that we had when we were kids growing up, Mom and Pa always put on a party. You can always count on them to put on a party. And they invite the whole neighborhood. I mean, there'd always be half as many people you got here today. There'd always be people around coming in. Confirmation baptism were a big thing to them. They just adored having people around and having parties. And these things, as far as I can recall, and they meant a lot to me too.
All handmade.
Out in the sun porch?
Yeah.
The old ones?
Yeah, the old ones.
Yeah, these have all been replaced.
Yeah, what I mean, they were all original ones, were all handmade. And they made some more for the house. No, wait, no. He made all them double hung windows.
We're ready to roll. We're contact. Okay, Sherry. When I was small, Frank and Joe and me, we slept in one double bed, single double bed. And I was always stuck in the middle. And they'd pull the covers one way and they'd fight the other way. And I was always the one in the middle getting squished. And Grandma and Grandpa were sleeping in the same room. Grandpa chewed snuff all night long, spitting on a newspaper. And in the bedroom, 2 rows of sausage hanging over the top of us, drying out. And every day I had to go up there with needles, poke holes in the sausage to dry it all out. And the sheets that we slept on, Grandma made them out of feed sacks. So she bleached them. They were Blue Star feed sacks. So I was a Dallas Cowboy fan way back when I was a little kid.
But my dad was always a good provider, that's what I'm trying to say. He always looked out for the babies, the children, and his wife. His wife he adored. There are no two ways about that. Mom and Pa were you don't find better people, as far as I'm concerned. I've traveled a lot and seen a lot of people. But he was always in love with her so much. And all the neighbors used to come over. I remember I was a little kid, the neighbors come over to toast bread in an oven. Can you believe that? I think toasters were, never heard of toasters. They come over and burn the bread, burn the toast, but she'd always have coffee for them, or she'd have coffee, she'd have a jug of wine on the table. But you know, Italian ladies, they all loved Mom. Mom always put on a good table. She never refused anybody in there. That's one thing about her.
You know, I believe down in the wine cellar there's still a
There's one right down the foot of the steps here.
what's that?
Point of ground.
No, I mean I think in the wine cellar I think there's a jar of plums or something that Grandma canned back in '62 or something like that. My father hung on to that.
There used to be a pump down there too, there at the bottom of the steps. As you walk down steps, there's one of the pipes coming up right there.
All right.
Just had a hand pump on pump water.
I think I remember that. As being a kid, I do think I remember that.
Used to be a well across right across from where you got your car parked.
Yeah.
There's a well.
I remember them telling us when we were kids there was a well there, not to walk over there.
Yeah.
Another time was Easter. We never got Easter baskets per se, but Mom always made us an Easter basket. Pa would go out and get the branches from the trees and skin them all the bark off of them. She'd boil all the eggs, and she'd get blueberries or grapes or something to color the eggs. And she'd make us, and all of us kids, an Easter basket. She'd wrap the dough around the egg, and she'd put a handle on it. And we always had our Easter basket. But Pat and Joe one time ate their Easter baskets like two little piglets and totally destroyed mine. And Mom chased them all around the house with the broom. I thought she was going to break the broom over both of their backs. That's how angry she was that time.
We ever picked up garbage.
Mm.
You went out, dug a hole, and threw the garbage in there, cans or whatever. Bottles, shit. No landfills then.
We had that big drum, 55-gallon drum that used to burn garbage, and then walk out there and just put it in and burn it up. Light it on fire.
Things that were most important, Pa and Mom, for his family.